It is Thursday, so it's Justice Thursday. And this hour, we will be looking into justice and how it meets automation. This one, I am very interested to learn and hear about. And joining us to curate that conversation this morning is the Honourable Susan Gake, who is a Senior Resident Magistrate and the Deputy Registrar of the Small Claims Court, as well as Peter Kingo, who's been here before, Director of Information and Communication and Technology at the Judiciary. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
So you do this most of the time, you interpret things all the time. So why come to the Situation Room and not interpret some more? Mark is going to tell us what African country he's in this week, and we want to get you into the hot seats this morning with your interpretation of today's proverb from
Libya, a country where the president met an untimely end, and people say that that the country would have been better with him. I don't know, but perhaps the proverb should be that our dear magistrate, how would you have found Gaddafi guilty or innocent? But that's not the question.
That's not the proverb either.
So the proverb is that he who keeps the company of a dog will bark. He who keeps the company of a dog will bark. Should we do ladies first?
Why not?
Thank you so much. I think it is quite straightforward in a way, in the sense that it is telling us in a positive way and in a negative way. If you keep the company of good people, you will adopt that behavior. If you again keep the company of people who will impact your life negatively, you will also adopt that behavior. So I think it is a caution to us to be very careful with the company that you decide to keep, because either way, it's going to impact you.
Very true. Very true. Basically, you're saying people should hang out with me. Thanks. Thanks.
I don't know what kind of interpretation that would be in a court of law, but okay.
Yeah.
What about you,
Bwana Peter?
Thank you. I think I would interpret it the same way. I am looking at it from a perspective that we are shaped by the environment. Not necessarily the people, but also the environment. But majorly from what she said, I totally agree that based on the people you associate with, you are likely to be like them. So the question is, that we have a choice on deciding whom to associate with. So that would be my interpretation.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have a choice, do.
To be a dog or a dog?
Not to bark like a dog or not.
Or not. Okay. Bow wow. Right. So the judiciary meets automation now, to when you hear automation, a lot of times you're going into the engineering world, but obviously that's not what we're talking about now. And maybe just to give us a brief overview, that when we're talking about the judiciary going into the system of automation, exactly what it means, and then what it portends for, everything that happens within this ecosystem that is the judiciary. We can start with you, Honourable Susan, in terms of what this exactly means when we talk about an automated judiciary.
Okay. Thank you so much. So basically, automation means we are digitizing our system, and in the sense that we are enhancing access to justice through automation. You understand that even in the judiciary, for us to be transparent, efficient, accountable, we cannot depart from automation. So basically, it is enabling our systems to allow citizens and the litigants who come to our court to access our judicial services remotely. And in the sense that you're now able to come and do things like, filing of your cases. You can, attend court sessions remotely wherever you are. You can make payments, of course, the court fees that you're expected to make through the system. And basically, you can also access your case information through the system. So what we are trying to do is limit the physical barrier to justice, and also the aspect of, the financial barrier. And it all is in line with the judiciary blueprint of social transformation through access to justice. Okay. And, one of the aspects of STAJ is leveraging on technology to enhance justice and ensure that our services are people-centered. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So in terms of the brick and mortar, then, Bwana King, how exactly does this work? What are we talking about? More technology within the judicial courts? The one big server? What are we looking at in terms of the introduction of technology?
If I could take you back, you are aware that not just judiciary, but just the justice sector, traditionally has been very conservative. Move away from the judiciary, go to the prisons, go to the police, basically all the actors. Been very conservative, a little behind in technology. But now when you say justice meets technology or automation, basically we are trying to look at the processes. Traditionally, how have we processed our transactions in terms of cases? How have our processes been? How efficient? So when you look at those processes, you will notice that there's been a lot of outcry. Talk of missing files that cannot be located, talk of delays. And so what we are talking of automation is now trying to make sure these processes are made more efficient. For example, before you could not attend court, you had to go to the courtroom. Right now, you can even attend court from outside here.
Yes.
You just need to log in. You had to go to the bank and pay. Right now, you file online and you pay online. We have cases that are time-bound, where you have to file within certain time. Right now, it's not a big problem. You just file online and pay, and it's all within the reach. It's a system, and you are able to file from wherever. So basically, what we are trying to do is that to make sure that the courts are closer to our litigants. And I think STAJ advocates for less than 100 kilometers. And I'm thinking now it is even much less. Yeah.
Okay. How do you connect how one of the things that you mentioned is that filing cases, making payments, how do you see that this digitization has actually then enhanced this? That when you now see that people don't have to line up to make payments, people don't have to look for physical files. I mean, the era of when you would show up in court and somebody says, Your Honor, sir, the file is unavailable, it is missing. Those would now lengthen cases, and people would see that now they were actually not accessing justice. How have we seen that because of this digitization, these things have actually reduced over time, and that now justice is actually being served?
Thank you so much. So, of course, we have just mentioned that automation is about access to justice. And we are aware that nowadays, if you want to file a matter in the judiciary, we use the e-filing system. So it is a system that enables you to file online as opposed to coming to court. So right now, actually, another innovation that we have incorporated is the e-judiciary mobile application, such that right now we are saying that even if you do not have a computer or a tablet, but you have your smartphone, you can be able to log in and file your case online, even using your gadget. So what we have seen that has done, it has enabled many people to file remotely. It has enabled many people not to have the inconvenience of having to come to court to follow up for your matter. So, of course, it has enhanced access to justice. In fact, we have seen heightened filing since we introduced the e-filing. You see, most people really did not want to come to court because of that inconvenience. The long queues, the paperwork and all that. But now at the comfort of your home or at your office, you can be able to file cases. So I think it has enhanced access to justice and made it very simple for us to be able to file our cases remotely. At the end of the day, we can see that it has made Mwananchi quite happy. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
There's something, I'm not a lawyer, but there is always a phrase, a very popular one, the letter and the spirit of the law. The question I have, because we're looking at streamlining the process, digitizing operations from analog to digital, is there the will to actually follow through? Because what I've seen, and I will give an example, I don't know that it's the appropriate one. When the deputy president or former Gachagua was in court, there was an element of a digital glitch in the e-filing process. So it almost appeared at the time somebody can decide to either manipulate, cause the glitch, and what then this will mean. And we live in Kenya, so we know the reasons for the delays is somebody is benefiting somehow in delaying a case, delaying the filing, a file is missing and all that. Is there the will to make it work from the top to the bottom?
Yes, I would say that the process of automation in the judiciary is led from the top. There is full support from the Chief Justice, from the judges. Basically, there is full support. Now, you must know that our systems are interconnected with the other actors. Here we're talking about not just the e-filing system, but also our administrative systems. I'm talking about the ERP. Then you connect all the way to our banks, all the way to our payment through M-Pesa. So what it means is that when a link breaks in that system, then it may affect the entire system. The case we've just given was just an unfortunate case where you have a problem maybe of connectivity, and for some reasons you are not able to proceed. For example, today if our payment process was down, you can't be able to pay because you will get the invoice from the e-filing system. But when you pay, we will not be able to receive your payment because the bank is not able to reach our ERP and confirm what you are paying for, that we have that invoice. You see, in a way, from a litigant who does not understand that connection, they'll think that they are unable to file and we've stopped them from filing. Because actually the message you'll get is that we cannot accept your payment. It's just a funny message. Cannot accept your payment. So depending on how you interpret and depending on where we have gaps, then it may trigger different interpretations. But indeed, it is true that we have many actors in the process. Yeah, some of the factors are beyond judiciary in terms of where are we hosted and all that, who are our ISP and all that. So yes, we have what is within our control and we have what is outside, but the will is there fully.
Let me add to that also.
Sure.
I think, Dennis, you mentioned an aspect of manipulating the system. And I know it was quite there before we introduced the digitization in the judiciary. Maybe, for example, someone would want to hide a file and, for their own benefit and things like that. But you see now with the system, you cannot do that because, of course, there's a trail. We will know when someone files. When you file, we know this has been allocated to this court. And so there's no forum shopping really. And there's no manipulation of the system, even for our judicial staff. So I think it has brought a lot of transparency. And also in the sense that I think the citizenry and the litigants are quite happy about it. Because, for example, when you're filing a matter in court, immediately you file that matter, you're given a mention date, you're given a date. So that aspect of, we normally had a lot of queues and people trying to manipulate people maybe in the registry to get a case number or a mention date in court. So right now what the system has done is that once you file, there is very minimal human intervention, in the sense that you will get a date and you will be able to follow through with your case in the system. So I think the will is there to make it, happen. Yes. Thank you.
I have two questions. One is very basic, the other is a bit technical. The basic question is this one. So in case I'm caught with a traffic offense in Mombasa and I was driving to Nairobi, I don't need to go back to Mombasa for the case. Ndio watu waelewe vizuri. Is that what you're saying? Or do I need to go back to Mombasa?
It's the aspect of jurisdiction also, where the offense happens. So, if it happened in Mombasa, of course it is within the vicinity of Mombasa.
Yeah.
If you have a traffic offense, where will you be taken? The nearest police station where it happened. So basically it means you don't have to go back to Mombasa physically, because you can log in through through our system, but wherever you are. So I think that is how we can interpret it, but it will be hard in the court in Mombasa, within the jurisdiction of the court.
Those of us who've lost money, used to tell you, uko Kajiado, utakuja Kajiado.
Yes.
Hiyo pesa sasa mwambie kwa heri.
Yeah.
So second question.
Yeah.
A lot of the time when courts used to be in session, I remember that there used to be a lot of time spent with the judge writing a lot of notes in between your statements, and it used to take such a long time to even get statements and things like that. And then of course I remember it used to be a pink file. It's a pink file, it's bound with some twine, and then it's put away and things like that. Is the process of being in court itself, now the process of the judge listening to the evidence being adduced and all of those things, is it one, being recorded better, and B, is there faster technology that judges are doing to be able to take down the witness statements and the proceedings of the court itself? Because what you've talked about is the things around the court process, but now when we log into the system and you're a witness, do you speak continuously, or is it the old system where someone is writing very hard to remember everything you said as you said it?
Okay.
Now, we are on a transition where we still have some judges who are writing and some who are not writing. If you look at civil matters, for example, I would say 100%. I think 100% proceed on a virtual court, meaning they are recorded through the Teams platform, and therefore they can be transcribed. And what we are trying to establish at the moment, and I think the next time I appear, I'll be talking about the launch of a transcription center, is where we now have a system that is able to get into a virtual platform, look at what was recorded yesterday, and transcribe overnight. It's able to that's why we insist on every judicial officer has a link, and that link is their court. So that link does not change. If you move from one station to another, you go with that link, because that is your court. So what we are trying to automate is such that we have an artificial intelligence tool that by night is able to scan through our platform, pick all the sessions for the day, transcribe, and drop a file somewhere. So in the morning, we have a team that now looks at what has been transcribed. And then they are able to see whether there are errors. Remember, it's still trying to learn our language in a way. So you'll find some words not properly spelled. We also have a problem in our country where the courts there proceed in local language or Kiswahili, which again not very accurate. But when you look at the system, with the training of the model that we've done over the last 1 year, I would say it's now close to 80% accurate. So by the time we launch it, then there will be no need for judges to write. You just sit in, listen. However, for criminal cases, where the witness has to come to court, we have recorders, and we are trying to see how the same can be done. But the idea is to make sure that in future, a judge does not need to actually write. And actually, the system, in the case tracking system, for those who want to type, we've given them a place to type directly into the system, because sometimes you write on a piece of paper, then it disappears. So I think it's a transition, and maybe the next 1 year you'll see a big change.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, of course, now the judicial officer and also the judge, you also have enough time to just listen in to, the case. And it has also helped in, when matters go for appeal, one of the challenges we were having is typing of those proceedings. And maybe the appeal now will delay because maybe the judge is waiting for the typed proceedings. So just like director has said, with that transcription now, of course, now it is ready just immediately after the session. So in case this matter goes for appeal, then it is very easy for the judge now to get the proceedings, and there will be no delay in terms of the typing of proceedings. I also think that it has assisted in making the court session quite professional, because even when the litigants, that you've been recorded, so you should be in your best behavior.
Right.
So this matter of you are just coming to court and you want to behave the way you want to behave. There's some people who are even insulting the judicial officers or the judge. So right now we have a record, and no one can accuse you falsely. And also for the litigants, they have to be professional in the way they come to court. So I think it has really, really helped us as judicial officers and judges. Thank you.
So the two areas, and probably we'll do one when we come back from the break, but the first one is around the area of absorption of technology by, the Kenyan population. That when we obviously there needs to be an enhanced access to justice, because Kenya is a highly litigious society. And so we've even made jokes and memes about it, call police, because that is what people will do and hope that it will go through the process when something is done. Now, in order to do that, that means you access populations. But the worry about the absorption of technology is, how can we ensure that everybody and their uncle around the country then has access, when we talk about this automation, that the person who has an issue over land or whatever is going to then be able to access the technology that is needed to be in court if they're not able to travel to the area where this court is. Is that something that has been taken into consideration?
Yes. I must tell you that if you look at the data, I was looking at the data of March last year, and you will see that around 22 million Kenyans are connected to internet. In some way, they are connected. And if you look at the penetration of phones, we are now talking about 118%. And this is the reason why we are trying to look at, if you cannot access e-filing, which is web-based, what is the other way of accessing e-filing? And that's why we are saying we've been piloting a mobile app, which will officially be launched on Friday. I was surprised we've not launched, but there are over 2,000 downloads so far.
It's 5,000.
5,000 now.
Yes.
So, you see, for people who cannot access internet through a laptop or a computer, now they'll be able to access through a mobile phone. Now, if you look at that mobile app and the features that we provided there, you can be able to file your matters. I know the focus was on small claims because their documents are small. But you see, you can also be able to track the matters. You can actually tell what has been filed, whether there's a mentioned date. You can be able to follow from there. You can even be able to follow probate administration matters, search and see whether the parcel of land has succession matters, and able to see that. You can file, you can pay online. So when we look at those who can file through the e-filing portal, plus those who can file through the smartphone, we are looking at a good number. Of course, we have a few that may not be able, and that's why at the court station we have a desk just assisting those who cannot be able to file by themselves. Either they do not have access to internet, a phone, or another form of connection to our systems. So I would say, even as we automate, we are very clear on making sure that we don't leave anybody behind.
So that one question before we go to the break, Honorable Kaki, and it's a gentleman who says, and this is what we do on Justice Thursday, isn't it? Because there are questions that will come through around the issues that we are discussing. And he says that in 2000 and... Rather, I'm an advocate. I applied for a decree in Milimani Small Claims Court. He's even given the number, and that was last year. rather the number, and then he says this was on the 24th of April, which we said it essentially should be automatic, right? He says to date the portal still is reading processing. What would that mean if it was still saying processing? And this is in the digitized automated system.
Okay, I'm actually surprised since April. I think that one is, just a very special case. And you see, in the small claims court, just like the advocate is saying, we have incorporated the end-to-end automation system. What he's saying about the decree is the post-judgment application, in the sense that when you get a judgment, then you can come and file through the system again for your decree, for your warrant of arrest, for your notice to show cause. So I think that one is... It has to be a special. We have not had that since April, because you see, our system endeavors that once you apply for your decree or once you apply for your post-judgment application, the system just picks it. And if you have a delay, it cannot delay for at least more than a month. Why we are having a problem a bit in the Milimani Small Claims Court is because we have overwhelming filings. We have overwhelming filings in that court. So as compared to the other courts in the other country. But at the system, I can assure you that it does not delay to that extent. Especially when you're now applying for your post-judgment application and request. So I think that is a special case.
What ought we to do?
Maybe I will look at it.
Okay.
I will get the number and, of course, look at it.
Okay.
Maybe it is just a system hurdle.
Okay, so we'll share that with you.
Yes.
It's a Justice Thursday conversation we're having this morning with the Honourable Susan Gaki and Wana Peter Kingo, and we're looking at the judiciary towards automation. And even as we continue with the discussion, many would have thought that with digitization, we saw it happen with, the digitization in the lands ministry. We could have a word to say about that, but okay. Are we seeing that corruption has reduced significantly? Corruption in these sectors, that files could disappear. They didn't walk away. Somebody took them. That payments could or could not be made in cash or otherwise. They were not made by a ghost. Somebody did them. Do we see that now with this digitization, where there is a footprint, that there's traceability, that corruption now has reduced significantly how we used to see it previously?
I would say it has reduced. We used to have a very serious problem with the receipts, for example. But now with automation, we are fully cashless. I don't think we have any station that's accepting cash. The process of payment, again, is also automated. And when you look at, for example, paying for fees, the receipt comes back to you through an SMS. You pay, you get the message, then we notify you and attach a copy of the receipt through a link. So what used to happen before was that people would make copies of these receipts, present them as the real receipts. But right now we have a way to verify. If you look at the mobile app, for example, and I give you a receipt and you scan it, it will tell you whether it's a fake receipt or not, or whether it's from us or it's from elsewhere. And so I think that has reduced. Looking at the mobile app, for example, and also in the e-filing kiosk, you will see that the court orders, the judgments that come from the courts, again, you can be able to verify. If somebody comes with a court order and you go both to our e-filing or even the mobile app and scan the code that is there, you will be able to see if it's from our side. It will load in the mobile app. You'll be able to compare the content and see whether it is the same order that's being presented. So there used to be a lot of corruption there. You'd get a demolition order which does not come from the judiciary before you realize your house is down. Right now you can actually, if anybody presents an order, just verify.
Okay.
Yes.
Speaking of this mobile application and one, I can see the benefits to a normal user, the access to information and other features that probably the mobile app will have, because as people work in media, I remember I don't know that they're still there, guys who used to sit in court waiting to write that today Ndu was charged with stealing Mark's car, and things like that.
Is it a nice car? Okay,
of course, it's a German
Please
car.
Carry on.
It's German. Omera, or what is? Anyway, so can we, for example, access cases and know what was the outcome using the app. What can the app do?
Oh.
You know, do we need to fire a few people who have cameras at
Yeah.
the judiciary?
Thank you for that question. Just like Director First has mentioned, the mobile application is coming in to make it more convenient for someone to just access our judicial services. So one of the aspects is what he has mentioned, verification of a court order. What we were having is, many people being served with fake orders, where you are told maybe your property is being attached, your car is being sold, your house is being sold, or the demolition aspect of it. So you can be able to verify a court order to ensure that it is a true order. Another thing you can do is access the cost lists and court virtual links. So if you have a case in court, the cost list means it is just a tabulation of the cases that will be had and determined on that day. So on your mobile application, you can be able to access your cost list and also the court virtual link so that you can be able to log in. Another aspect is, it has a public kiosk in the sense that you can, just like you're saying, if you want to find out about a case, what you do is just input the name of the maybe the plaintiff or the claimant. And if you have a case number, you also input it there. And it will just show you a summary of that case. Basically, what the case is about, it is in which court station, when was it heard, and things like that. So basic information concerning your case. Another thing that, of course, the app can do is probate and administration matters, in the sense that you can follow them and see if a succession matter has been filed in court. So what you do is just indicate the name of the deceased, because you see for P&A matters, you can only have one matter. One death certificate number can only have one matter. So you can also follow up your succession matters. So basically what we are saying is, the mobile application has made it convenient. Another aspect is filing of cases through this app. But this is only in the small claims court. But we will enhance the app to incorporate all the other cadre of courts in the aspect of filing. But it is only the aspect of filing. All these other things, you can get your case information on all cadres of court, from the Supreme Court, which is at the highest level, now to the small claims court. So at the comfort of your home, you can use that mobile application to even file your cases.
That's interesting because it does help with journalistic research and fact finding. So guys, instead of going there with the cameras, sit online, write it up, and you can file more stories. That's actually quite interesting. Now let's talk about communities that find themselves in cases of land, in cases of communal disputes, and these are now large numbers of people that are interested. So they probably have 1-2 lawyers and things like that. And sometimes it has happened in the past where the court has pronounced itself, but the community did not either hear it, or when it was interpreted to them, it was interpreted to them wrongly. So when you look at these communities, how is this social media accessibility, digital accessibility, etc., going to actually help communities and communal problems?
Like I said, we have a lot of people with phones right now, and they have access. If you go to the mobile app and even the e-filing portal, look at a case. From the time it was filed, you will see the flow of activities, and you will see, if, for example, you have access, you register and you are mapped to the case, then you can also be able to see the document that have been filed. So if you need a better interpretation and you have access to the document, either the judgment or even the documents filed, you can be able to access the document and seek further maybe explanation from someone to understand the law. So it's not an issue of you not being able to access the court decisions, and now you have access. And by the way, so as to reach more people, I talked about the e-filing, I talked about the mobile app. We are also thinking of, and it's actually ready, a decision portal where now these decisions are going to be public. Like for you in the media, you just get into that decision portal, you click on, say, a ruling or a judgment from the Court of Appeal, and you're able to download and access. So I'm thinking, based on what you've asked, with time, because right now in the e-filing for the the decisions and the other documents files, they are restricted to the parties of the case. But now the portal that's going to be public is going to make sure that even if you are not part of the case and you are interested, you can also at least read and know exactly what was said about the case, the decision, and then because law is also complex, then you can seek interpretation.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question to you, Honorable Susan, is there are certain cases that are extremely sensitive. And we're in the era of data protection, data privacy. And my question is, when you are dealing with sensitive legal data and you're digitizing this through the systems, what measures have you put in place to ensure that there is safety of this data? And how do you prevent breaches or, for lack of a better word, tampering of this very sensitive data in your systems?
Okay.
Because once it's digitized, it's already gone.
I'll just answer the first part of it and maybe give director because he has been working on that. In the aspect of maybe disseminating the information that is, just available to the public, just like we have said, you can access your case information. What we do is we don't, when you are now accessing that case, whatever you will get from that system will not be the nitty-gritties of that case, in the sense that not everyone who will access and maybe indicate a case number there or, will be able to get the nitty-gritties of that case. It is just a summary. So you will not be able to know, exactly what the case is about. It is just a summarized version of it so that we don't get, your data out there, especially maybe in issues, of course, in every case which is sensitive, you wouldn't want the members of the public to be able to know the exact information in that case. In the aspect of data protection, I think I will leave it to director to answer that.
Let's start with the cost list, for example. If you go to the judiciary cost list, for most of the matters, you'll be able to see the parties. But when you go to the children court, you realize that they're initialized. You can't even know the parties in the case. And that is why when you are also filing, we require that you create an account so that when you are filing, you can only access your documents. For you to be mapped to a case, you have to request. And when you are requesting, you must prove that you are part of the case. The documents that we require before we map you to a case. So that makes sure that only parties in a case can see the documents. Now from the kiosk in the e-filing and the mobile app, you can see as much as the summaries. This case went through mention before this JO. But when you go to the documents, you cannot access the actual documents until you have an account and you are mapped to that. So even for the decision portal I've talked about that we want to come up with, you'll also notice that rulings or decisions from children matters and other sensitive matters will also not be accessible because they are flagged as sensitive or confidential. So that one we make sure that there's a way we profile these cases. Civil matters, most of them are public, but when it comes to children and family matters, that ones you cannot access. So that's at the level of accessing. You must be a party to a case for you to access the fine details about the case. But overally, in terms of data protection, I think we've tried to secure our systems to make sure that you only access what you are supposed to access. And by the way, we make sure that you have very limited information, just enough for you to transact, for you to get what you need. And we have a team. We have a section that's a cyber security team that basically spends 8 to 5 just monitoring our systems. And we've invested heavily in the way we connected from the stations and from our data centers. In fact, I would say that all our data from the stations is encrypted because it's all through a firewall. For you to access the e-filing, it's open to the public. But you see, that is just a platform for filing. When you pay, is when the documents flow to our side. On our side, we talk of case tracking system. Now, that system you cannot access unless you are on a secure network. And that is the key system where everything now runs. So I would say there is nothing like absolute security but we've tried our best.
Have you had situations, and maybe this will be my last question, have you had situations, because we've seen this before, there are obviously challenges. I've not heard you guys talk about any challenges so far in rolling this out, but in the event the system hangs, for whatever reason, we've seen this with the eCitizen and all these other, digital platforms that are being rolled out to assist the common mwananchi. In the event the system hangs for whatever reason, or it's hacked, I'm not saying it will, but in the event something happens, what's the plan B?
For our processes, we have what we call as the offline procedures. I'm sure you've seen our notices. When we have a challenge and we are down, we normally issue a notice and guide on how to file, especially for certificates. So both payment and both filing, we have alternative means of doing it. It is true that in the past we've had down times, not necessarily that we encountered some sort of attack, but once in a while you'll get a challenge, especially you could get something like a denial of service. It's a form of attack where you get a lot of traffic. That used to happen a while back before we properly secured our systems, and that can happen to anybody. When I decide to flood your systems, I can be able to flood, but you see, I will not be able to go past the firewalls, but I will make sure that you cannot be accessed from outside. That's the common form of attack that is basically supposed to deny service. So because we are sure that may happen someday, then what we've done is to put our procedures on how to file in case we are totally unreachable, how to pay when we are totally unreachable, and how then to also communicate. You'll notice that, like, for example, the Supreme Court has retained in their rules that you also must also file manual, because they deal with the presidential petition. It's around 14 days. So what happens if it's a serious challenge and we are down?
We lose all the documents.
So they have another option. And if you go to the other courts, in their rules, they have a way on how to go when that happens.
Just a quick question. The connection between the police and this system, because you go to the police station and you are given the famous OB number. I don't even know what OB means.
Occurrence book.
Oh, okay. You see, nice to have a teacher. Yeah. So on the occurrence book,
yes.
So you're given an OB number. How does this then integrate? Because it's usually on a piece of paper. All of that thing, tiny piece of paper. How then, if I have a matter, let's say someone's broke into my house, I happen to catch them, or took them to the police, there's an OB number, how does that then integrate with your system? Because now that's the other questions Kenyans will have.
So I think it is what we're looking at in the future, because it's very important to integrate the system of the Director of Public Prosecutions, and also the police, because when you come to court, it is the bench and also the prosecution side of it, and also the prison side of it.
Yes.
So in our system, I'm sure Director will tell us, it's something that we're looking into to integrate the system, so that if I am hearing a criminal case and I want to access an OB, it will be as fast as just seeing it in the system, or a police file. And same as the prosecution, if they want anything from the judiciary, they'll be able now to access through the system. So it is something that we are looking into, and of course it has to be done, because to ensure that this automation really works, it is important to integrate all our systems, and I'm sure we've already started doing it.
And in terms of timelines, and I asked this question with an example that I remember in South Africa, my passport was stolen. So I went to the police station, and this very same thing that Mark is talking about, I gave a statement, and there was a gentleman who was putting it into a computer in terms of what I was saying had happened. Now I had to go back. I couldn't come to Kenya. I had to go back to Nigeria, of course, to get a new passport at that time, because I couldn't travel. But interestingly enough, months later, it really didn't matter, because by then I had a new passport and I wasn't going to wait for it. But through the system and through the information that I had given, they were able to now get back in touch with me here in Kenya, and to say that actually somebody had, dropped my passports in the lost and found, whatever, at the mall area. I mean, all the money was gone, but that's not. But because of the automation of that system, they were able to see the details from one place to the next and follow through that system. I even got a notice saying you want to appear in court and give a mention, whatever. Didn't matter at that point. But then just to see that can go through, go through that system. So in terms of time to see, I can imagine that you would shorten a process so much just by having that done, and then you can the traceability factor also then increases.
Yeah.
So when we say that in time it will be done, I think the question for most people is like, are there plans? Is there somebody who's done something?
I covered that story some years back, and I will tell you the pushback that has been experienced, because it's a conversation that has been happening within the security sector for a very long time, and it's part of this judicial process. And this was in 2020 when the automation of the National Police Force digitizing the occurrence book started.
Yeah.
Now, when you speak to not all, some of the officers in these stations, there are two challenges. There's a digital divide where you have an officer who does not know how to type. And because you are narrating and reporting an incident, they can't type. I experienced this when I was reporting a case, and it took 45 minutes with all interruptions to just type. You're typing with one finger. The old officer does not know how to type some of these things. Spellings are wrong. That's one. The second bit of it was the pushback not to generally make this thing work. And that's why it suffered blows since 2020 up to where we are. There are officers who don't want this digitization to
happen. So it's more than just a time thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I asked the question, because the other question naturally becomes, there used to be a big problem about the appearances of the officers who investigated, arrested, etc. into court. Is this system helping that become better? Because the arrest, the OB was one issue. Then you go to court and the officer is not available. In fact, there are quite a number of corruption cases that failed because the police did not show up. Police, I am not accusing you of anything.
So we can hear from you.
Yes. So you see, the way the justice sector works is through the National Council on Administration of Justice. It has both state and non-state actors. And the idea is to make sure that there is efficiency, effectiveness, and at least create some way of working together. For instance, the challenge with police is real. But you see, there is already a solution that is working. Police normally file through the ODPP. So they come to the judiciary, they connect to our systems through the ODPP. And the ODPP have their own system. So what happens is that from the system that ODPP have deployed, when they file their charge sheets on their side, it's automatically registered on our side in the CTS. And then they are issued with a case number. And from there, they can follow up the case. So that's how police come in. So the biggest challenge for automation in the judiciary is ensuring that the justice actors, the NCAJ members, move together at the same speed. Is the judiciary moving the same speed with, say, the prison, the police, to the children and others? So what we've done is to make sure that from our systems, we give them a portal. The prisons, we've given them an interface where they link to us. The police, they come through the ODPP. Probation and children matters, again, they have a portal from our system. So for those who are not ready, we actually create a portal for them to link with us.
Okay.
So that's what we are doing. But the bigger objective, I think, is to end up with one system. When every actor catches up, the idea will be for NCAJ to make sure we have one system which is interconnected and can facilitate tracking, just like you have explained.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's 1,000 steps, but clearly some of those steps have been taken, and it's good to see that some of these things are happening. And thank you for opening up this with us this morning on this Justice Thursday in the Situation Room. The Honourable Susan Gaki is a Senior Resident Magistrate and Deputy Registrar at the Small Claims Court, and Peter Kingo is the Director of Information and Communications Technology in the Judiciary. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.